Hello, everyone here. Hello, everyone on Zoom. Thank you for bearing with us. We, for some reason, just don't have internet today. So we made a makeshift system and just thank you for your patience. So we're calling the meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. And we're going to do a roll call of board members. Ravonda Smith.
Here.
Claire Cousin.
Here.
Rebecca Wolf. Rebecca Borer here. Robert Davis.
Here.
And Anthony Bennett.
Here.
Amazing. Okay, and our first piece of business is to approve the meeting minutes from February 9th. Does everyone have the minutes?
Linda, thank you so much for that.
Yes, thank
They
you,
were great.
Linda.
As always, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
Okay, so a motion from Ravonda Smith, seconded by Claire Cousin. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's approved unanimously. Okay, and approving the accounts payable for February 2022. Did everybody get a chance to look at that? We have them here.
Get some copies out for the public out there too.
Okay, so can I hear a motion to approve the accounts payable?
I will make Rebecca Wolf will make that motion.
Okay, Rebecca Wolf made the motion, Ravonda Smith seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So our third business item today is a report from our interim director, Nick Zakos.
Thank you, Rebecca. First issue on the agenda is the fire alarm issues, which we discussed at the last meeting. We heard from some folks from the Hudson Fire Department about their concerns. Since that point, we have converted both our maintenance and our monitoring of the fire alarm system to a new company who has been amazing. They've completely taken over the system. We've had much fewer incidents since then. The system is still has its issues, but they've done an amazing job, been hands-on, working right with our maintenance department. And we just got an estimate for roughly $7,500 for them to fix the entire system in the entire building, which is actually a good deal for us, considering what we were looking at, I think, from the estimates that I sent you from other companies. So we're really on a good path in terms of turning that around, which has been a serious issue in the building. Just really good to know that we have a local company monitoring, dealing with all of that stuff. So that's a good update. I think I've mentioned this and we've talked with a few board members. This actually came as a request from some board members. For the next meeting, you all will see most likely some proposals for a forensic audit, which is just kind of a next step past our typical audits, especially for a new director coming in, just so that they can get a really detailed evaluation of how our books are run, past few years of history, inventory of actual goods that have been purchased, double checking to make sure all of those actually align with what's in the apartments, what's in our stock. And that was kind of advised that would be a great thing for our new director to walk into and be able to see that and understand how all the systems work. A security position. I'm also happy to announce that as of March 28th, we are scheduled to have a security guard on. We're still working out some of the details, specifically the hours. We've been speaking with tenants. I spoke with Robert, I spoke with Anthony, and we're really trying to figure out, is this the kind of thing that we're looking at to maximize the times when we think security guard is most needed? Some people have said weeknights is the most important time, but then weekends are not covered. So we could either do different shifts depending on those. But the good news is that's been approved. We're moving forward with that, sending our notices to civil service, but we've gotten our initial approval, so we're in good shape to do that. And that's, so that is Damien, who's our maintenance worker, currently cleaner. He's going to be shifting up into that position. He has security. He doesn't have a certification, but he's going to work on getting it, which I think many of the candidates would have had to do. But he has a history working in the security field. And we have some candidates that we're looking at for maintenance / janitor, custodian, to replace him. Some from inside the building or some who grew up in the building, which is also great. The ED candidate recruitment process is ongoing. It's out of my hands now. And as the board knows, it's in their hands. So I can't give you too much of an update on that, but I know that that transition happened, and I think it's moving forward.
Yes, it is. I did speak with Simone today, and she did let us know no later than the second week of April, we will have 10 to 15 candidates to interview.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
They move fast.
Yes. So she'll be contacting all of us for that interview process.
Okay, great. Are they still gonna contact all of us
They are.
individually? Great. Cool.
Right now, I've been sending them information that I've been getting from Trish and Nick, and then soon she'll be contacting the board.
That's really exciting.
We talked about the parking spots for staff last meeting, and we did since then get our temporary signs up. We have 3 spots in the south parking lot, 2 spots in the north parking lot. And as you all know, there also is street parking available for our staff. And so we'll get the permanent signs. Our maintenance staff is working on getting those permanent signs up. But we do have those in place, and it's been great that tenants have been honoring that, and some staff have been parking in those spots. So that's good. The asbestos update. I wanted to talk a little bit more about this since there's been a lot of questions. We did sign the contract with Ambient to do our monitoring and to create our asbestos plan for the building, monitoring the contractors that we're going to hire. And just so everybody understands, in New York State, when you have an asbestos issue, you can't just hire a contractor to come in. You have to hire contractors who are actually going to do the work, and then you have to hire a monitoring firm who monitors the process. And they have to be separate firms, and they have to be procured in a separate process. So we've established the first part of that with our monitoring. They're also we've signed a second contract with them that will also allow them to do an informational training session for our staff so that our staff know what they're looking for, and an information campaign for the tenants. So the tenants are fully aware of what the issues are, what to do if there's a hole in the wall. And the quick thing that I'll say, because we've had a lot of questions about this, and folks know that there is an issue with asbestos in the building, our apartments in good condition should not pose a threat of asbestos exposure to our tenants. And what the reports that we've done are, and what the needs assessments have shown, is that there is the possibility of asbestos within building materials in the high rise and the low rise. So, and the places where those are in the floor tiles, in the joint compound tape in between sheetrock pieces, and in popcorn ceilings in apartments. And so if all those are in good shape, there's no risk of exposure. But if there's a hole in your ceiling, if there's a hole in your wall in those specific places, or there's broken tiles, then there is the risk. There's not the definite reality, but there's the risk that there could be exposure to asbestos. And so what we are looking to do with this company is both train our staff to be able to look at that. Most of our maintenance staff know that concept, but they just need the further training, and then know what to do when they find it. And then make sure that all of our tenants are aware, so that we make absolutely sure that if there is a hole in the wall or in the ceiling tiles, or floor tiles broken, that tenants know to contact maintenance immediately so that we can deal with that issue.
Okay.
The good news is, for the apartments that are currently vacated or empty because of asbestos, is that I believe about 80% of them are very small issues, a hole in the ceiling, normally 1 inch to 2 inches or less. And the firm that we've hired thinks that those can be contained as opposed to abating, which is a much bigger process. And then there are several units which the damage is bad enough that they will have to fully abate.
Okay.
So that'll be a much bigger cost.
Do we know how many units at this point that is? Or-
Right now, all of our units that are not currently lived in, that are
Yeah.
currently active, are
in need of full
in need
abatement?
of, no, not full abatement,
Oh,
either
just in need.
containment or abatement.
Okay, cool.
And I believe that number is 11 for the. Oh, I apologize. That's the case for Bliss.
And different in Columbia.
In Columbia Apartments, there are different reasons why some of the apartments are offline.
Yeah.
But I think we have either 11 or 12 that are offline here specifically for asbestos. 8 or 9 of those are luckily just going to be containment and not
Okay,
abatement.
great.
The next step, now that we have them hired on for monitoring, is to hire on a firm to do the actual contracting of the containment or the abatement. And the last piece is they're also going to offer a training, which is a more extensive training to one of our staff to be able to specialize in asbestos. You won't be able to do the entire abatement or containment. They'll be able to do a vast majority of the work in-house under the supervision and the monitoring of this firm, which will allow for a lot more efficiency in terms of hiring out contractors to do this kind of work, especially for the small containment jobs.
Makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
That's great.
Is that clear to all the board members? Anthony, did you have any other questions about asbestos? I know that was a real concern for you.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I have one little.
Yes.
So are you saying that there's going to be a process where every apartment is going to be either like self-reported or scanned by somebody else?
Yeah, well, the idea is that when our maintenance workers go into a unit, they're always going to be looking for this. They know the telltale signs. We're going to do a further training so to make sure that it's absolutely clear. But that's already happening. There's no plan to do inspections per se, but the goal is to really educate all of the tenants and to be able to answer questions of the tenants. So if there is an issue, a hole in the wall, something else, they know what to look for, to like what kind of problem in their room would lead them to go to maintenance.
Yeah, okay.
Clear line of instruction so that if this happens, go to this person.
Cool.
So that's what we're shooting for.
Mhm.
So that's it for asbestos. And thank you, Anthony, for continuing to push on that. And that really got the ball rolling. And it was good that we got everything moving because, that's obviously one of the most important things, if not the most important thing, health and safety of our tenants here. And then the new dates of the meeting. We are going to be, this is actually not the right week, right? We did an exception this week, but it's going to be the
third Monday.
Third Monday of every month.
So the next meeting is April 8th.
April 18th. And that seems to be a schedule that works for all of our board members. And the last update that didn't get on this version of the agenda is that since at the last meeting, we got the amazing offer and news from HCHC that there was a potential for a debt repayment plan for our tenants coming through HCHC. That we have had several meetings with our lawyers, several meetings with the attorneys for HCHC. And it looks like we're going to be able to make that happen. We're going to work out the details. What's exciting about it is it makes it a little bit difficult, is it's really never been done before. And so it's not like we can go to some template and say, this is how Albany did this, and we're gonna mimic it. We're gonna be kind of charting new territory and entering into a really exciting agreement where a lot of tenants who have been experiencing significant difficulties financially are going to have a huge burden lifted off their back. And so it's incredibly exciting. And we'll look forward to more updates as the two groups of lawyers come to an agreement on how that's going to happen.
Do we have any idea of the timeline, like in the next month or?
I would assume by next month, we'll at least have a process laid out by which maybe it'll be a resolution or something that we can move forward.
That's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
I have a question before we move to new business, about the security position.
Yep.
What is the chain of command, and did we think about who this person is gonna report to, and like any stipulations that they absolutely do not report to the police? And have we like talked about what that looks like, as far as communication?
Right now, the chain of command is directly from the security officer to the director.
Okay.
As I said in the last meeting, this is a kind of a stopgap measure. The new director will need to either build off of what we're starting or do a new system. But this is kind of a temporary stopgap measure. Just get somebody in there in the evenings, in the times when our tenants have talked about there being the biggest issue. But those kind of details have not been worked out, more than the chain of command going directly from the security position to the director.
I think when he starts, there should be something in place that is like, he has an understanding of like where he's supposed to go in case of an emergency, because we don't want to invite
Yep.
police in more than they already are. So I just want to make sure that that's clear before.
Yeah, and I think figuring out that language will be important. I wonder if we could look for templates from other housing authorities or any kind of housing situations where we could look at similar situations and find a template.
I love.
Yeah, that would be great.
That, the resolution was do you remember the specific timeline for the security position? It was until the end of, wasn't there?
Till the end of April, I believe,
Okay,
because
cool.
the new executive director would be Nick ends May 1st.
Yeah.
So that's when we would have to re-give him the job again.
So yeah, so it's again, it is a civil service position. So if Damien were to continue on in the role, if the new director wanted him to do that, at some point civil service will issue a test, which doesn't exist right now. And he would have to pass that test to be, or he would have to be reachable in the top 3 of that test. Or they have to give the test, sorry, not invent the test.
They don't like give every test,
Yeah.
all the time.
And for some positions that are more popular, a clerk position, they'll have a list of people who've already taken the test. And civil service does not have a list currently in Columbia County and hasn't administered a test in a long time. That's it for the director's update.
Okay, so we do have business to go into executive session, but before we do that, we want to take public comment from anyone and everyone who wants to speak or say something. I figure that's better than waiting for everyone to. Does that feel all right to everyone?
It's up to the board.
Jenna?
Now, is that mainly for offline apartments or is it for?
It's well, the kind of educational and information plan that we're talking about is really for online units, making sure that our tenants, we're not abating those units, it's an informational kind of campaign. So it's making sure that our tenants understand what the potential dangers are and in what situations they'll need to contact us to evaluate a situation. Does that make sense?
I see. So, like with offline apartments, you have basically free reign to do whatever you want. But with online apartments, it's basically the tenant will report if anything, the tenant or maintenance will report if they notice that.
Right. So the examples would be something happens and a bunch of the ceiling or the floor tiles in your floor get damaged. And we want, when something like that happens, our tenants to be aware, oh, that's one of the things that I was supposed to contact maintenance or the front office as soon as that happens. Then we can go send somebody to quickly evaluate whether there is the potential for exposure.
What if somebody moves out of an apartment for regular refinance? Even rent it out again, would in between there, if you give them actually to see it.
That's exactly the situation that most of the units that are offline got to that place with. An example is as simple as we went, a tenant moved out, and as soon as we walked in, we see that the door had been opening and the doorknob had put a hole in the wall. It's not a guarantee that there's exposure to asbestos, but there's the possibility, there's the potential that that's part of the wall that could be. And so as soon as we see that and there's that potential, that room's off limits. And that goes to our staff too, until our monitoring firm comes in and looks at it, we won't know. And then we can evaluate and either contain or abate at that point. So that's the informational component. The abatement or containment happens once the unit's empty, and then we decide what the next step is.
Okay,
I have a question.
yeah.
My question is like,
Mhm.
I live in a building, and I don't have Wi-Fi, but I know the building has Wi-Fi. So, cause like when you go on Wi-Fi, it says community room, they just say,
Yeah.
what's the password? And then I go down and ask what the password is to the Wi-Fi, and they said they can't give it out. And I'm like, why? And I pay rent here, and only people that they do is they stay in the office and give us directions. And I'm wondering, like, why can't I get a Wi-Fi password and the building has Wi-Fi already in it? And you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And unfortunately, I don't know the answer to it. I think what I've heard in the past is that Wi-Fi is supposed to be for these computers. It's supposed to be for these meetings. But I hear you that it seems like if we have Wi-Fi in there, that tenants should have access to it. We are in discussions with Unity Now, who is the entity that is hosting this meeting right now, that they could potentially be offering high-speed Wi-Fi at reduced rates to the tenants, separate from the Mid-Hudson cable Wi-Fi or internet that already exists. But I don't see any reason why the board/new director couldn't also look into hiring them to provide free internet to the tenants, if that was something that could be cost effective, or to certain areas or certain rooms like this that tenants could always come and have access to internet if they needed it. So I think that's a valid.
And also, here, sometimes we live in a building, and we have a key, but a key opens up the door, whatever, in the laundry room and whatever, but it doesn't open up this door. Only certain people that got the key, and certain people that live in the building are entitled to go and use this room, for the computers or whatever, or boxes or whatever it may be. So I wonder why my key, if I wanted to come here anytime I want to, or whatever, to get stuff, because I don't have a computer at home, or I don't have Wi-Fi at home. So to come down here and use the computer to take care of my business, like I got Zoom meetings and stuff where I work at, how come my key can't open up the door?
That is news to me. I was under the impression that all the tenants had access to this building.
Certain people, they just come in and just open up the door. Anytime they want to come in here and watch TV or whatever. But I want to do, why can't I do it? And other people in the tenants that live in the building do it also.
Yeah.
Why is our key turned off and others not?
That is a great question. I thought that this was just open access to tenants.
They locked it because they don't want to like take my computer or anything.
Right.
A certain time of day, like when they're in the office, they'll be like, once they leave the office, they automatically.
But we got all these cameras, we they're looking at us every inch that we move, so, I mean, with the top.
Are you saying that you?
I'm just saying, I just wanted to know why.
Yeah,
What's the
just-
problem? I understand what she's saying, like, we got people that got power fights, still whatever, but you got all these cameras looking at everything, but they ain't running here.
No, there actually is one right
There's
now.
some, one over there, and you got like 10 of them on the other floor.
Mhm.
Are you saying that you feel like some people can get in here after
Yeah,
hours?
I see them, we watch them, but we don't say nothing, but we saying something now.
Mhm.
And I wonder like, what's up?
Mhm.
What's the beef? What's the problem? What's the issue?
Well,
Mhm.
yeah, that's right.
That is,
Yeah,
Yeah,
get
we're
down to
gonna-
the bottom
we're
of
gonna
that. Mhm.
And my other question, my last question is, there's a lot of apartments in this building, and there's only a limited amount of maintenance people.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering why, and there's only like, maybe I say like 4 maintenance people in the building, they gotta do all this stuff to fix people's houses, plus do the cleaning, whatever. I'm wondering though why y'all don't hire or put something in the paper, like, or whatever, saying that we need help. Cause y'all need help, y'all got 1, 2, 3, 4 maintenance people, and everybody, and each one of them, they can't do the whole building all in one day, you know, and to get everything like new, so that's why things are behind, because there's not enough staff.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if y'all fix that kind of could like limit the problems the issues that you have, because people want their houses fixed, but they got other things to do, you know?
Mhm.
So they got stuff piled on them, and this shit is piling on us, and everybody's getting upward, and nothing's getting done, because people are frustrated.
Mhm.
that's one thing that I've also seen. And what I can say is in the process of hiring this person to replace the position moving to security.
Yeah.
We already have a few candidates who have come and filled out applications. And that's one of the things that I've been wondering is if we couldn't hire multiple people. If we have it in the budget, that would be my preference. Bring them on part-time and to say,
I mean, 'cause
we
that's-
rehire that position and hire another one past there.
It's gonna fall down.
I agree. I think we could use instead of just putting one more person in that, we could put 2 more people into that role. As long as the budget allows, I'm in total agreement with you that we should do that.
Oh, I'm done with my question.
That's great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I would like to follow up with you tomorrow if it's okay, just about that, the use of this room and get some more details.
Does anyone else have any questions? Yep. Oh, yeah.
Did you say they have an appointment to come tomorrow? Okay, that's good. I apologize, that it's taken that long. It is a difficult process, going through all the government bureaucracy, but, as soon as it kind of came to my attention and Anthony really brought it up and reiterated it, we've been moving as fast as we can, but it's unfortunately a slow process. But the goal obviously is to get people in here, to do whatever needs to happen in those units and get people who were displaced like yourself back into their original units. And then, just like we're saying, educate everybody so they know what issues to look for in their apartment. Yeah.
So, I don't know who's like the meeting itself, but like, I live in a apartment, like in my apartment, things are great, but I don't get anything. They get stuff from different apartments, there's my apartment. Like, I had a flood so bad in my apartment from my wall, like the toilet decided to just burst out and go everywhere. And, like, I'm calling Mike, it's like 12 o'clock at night, and like, you have to come, like, it's everywhere, like, I can't stop it. Literally, there was no, knob.
Or shut off
on the
valve.
bottom, yes. So instead of getting a new, this happened plenty of times, which I understand if it's late and you don't have it, you know, you go to another apartment and get it. But numerous times on different things has happened in my apartment, and things still don't get fixed. They're like, oh, they'll turn it off, you know, they'll turn it off and never had a new knob put in or never got the new wiring. Or, you know, they just went next door and got something like my window broke. They went next door and got a window. Somebody broke my window and just put the other window in. Are we not, like, are they not ordering what we need for the apartment? That, you know, that when things break, you know, they don't have enough of it. There's a lot of times I've heard, you know, we don't have it or it's, you know, on back order, but there was a couple things that had broken my house that they had to get different parts from different apartments. So, you know.
Let me look into that and see what the policy is or procedure in terms of replacing with new items as opposed to replacing with things from other, because that's a new one to me. So I would like to know what the story on that is also in terms of our maintenance procedure.
And then just one other thing, like with the, what you were saying about the Wi-Fi, like I pay $120 a month just for minute. I don't include in cable and there's no other company in this area, but
How much do you pay?
$120.
And without cable?
200 with cable. It's insane. They're the only company. We can't go with any other company around here, but Catskill.
Only public housing,
Yeah.
that's a problem. The
And
terrace,
literally, you
get
can't have
So they have to use the
you can't
Hudson
have
cable.
the dish, you know, the dish network, you can't have that here. It's like, because it's in front of people's apartments, which is cheaper. It's $70 a month. When I moved here, they said to me, you can't get that because we're not allowed to put, you know, we're scared somebody's gonna ruin the dish network thing. So you have to get internet. My apartment didn't have internet for 10 years when I moved there. Now I just pay for internet because I didn't want to, cable was getting too expensive together. It was almost $200 a month. I was like, the bill's almost as much as my rent. Like I'm not, you know. So I'm paying $100 now, $110 a month now. That's just for internet, not even for cable. So it does get hard for some tenants that can't afford that, you know.
I'm gonna just, while we have our attorney on the meeting, I'm just gonna ask a quick question. Brian, are you still there?
I am.
Maybe you can also say that you can't give an opinion at this point, but the question is regarding this topic is an outside provider, a service provider wants to come in and provide a service to like high-speed internet to our tenants. It's obviously different than us signing a contract for HHA to buy that service. We have lots of service providers, Mid-Hudson Cable, whoever else will come in and offer internet or cable. Is that something that we have to pass a resolution to let somebody come into the building and do that? Or is that just something that a service provider can offer on their own?
Well, I think that is really up to the board. I mean, it's your property and access to your property. It may be something that you may want to procure if one entity is willing to offer it.
Right.
And there's more than one who can. You might want to think about just doing a quick procurement and seeing who would offer the best rates.
We actually had Shaheen come and do a tour to see if he can provide that. But Shaheen, can you hear me? And he had said something about like the structure of the building. He wasn't able to like put his.
No, he's changed it, and he now has a proposal where he thinks he could bring Unity now could bring high-speed, low-cost internet into the building.
Oh.
Yeah, those issues that we thought we were facing before actually are out the window. There's recently been some legislation passed by the FCC, which is the overarching organization that like oversees all the internet service providers. That pretty much says that what we were being told that nobody else can come in and service the building is no longer allowed. So it's really up to the board.
Oh, well, this is good. I mean, we spoke about this in the past. We can pick up where we left off. We spoke about providing internet for all the tenants of HHA. So we can just pick up where we left off before.
Absolutely, yeah. And as Nick said, I sent a proposal not too long ago. So yeah, we can talk about it whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I think that Claire just proposed having a special meeting, and I think that would be worth it we could try to do a procurement process and make sure that we're doing all our due diligence, but I think that would be a really great thing for the tenants here to be able to offer that. So maybe at the end of this meeting, we'll try to schedule that really quickly.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaheem. Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
First, it's always good that somebody from our community up there, whose parents who are there,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Secondly, we've talked a lot about this is years. Folks, I have to say that because I'm here, like we just started when this mayor was sitting right here, appointed a board to listen to. Right? Before then, nothing. For many years, nothing. Couldn't even paint the bench, nothing. But folks are working and bringing, I'm so proud of for these folks bringing about to Hudson, which we must grow up. Finally, in terms of ACHC and our want to pay the back rent for tenants, we want no restrictions. We don't want to know what Pookie did over here or Johnny did over there or Miss Debbie did over here, right? we just want to provide this to tenants, period, point blank, no restrictions. So like in the conversation that we're not here to judge. We're here to help. If you leave here, where the hell are you going?
Thank you.
I'm requesting that.
Absolutely. That's no problem.
Does anyone else have any other comment or any board members want to comment on anything?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been here for a couple of years. Okay, I'm from Albany. Right, I from the Albany project. Okay, Albany project's running more better than this project ever run. I've been down here. You know, don't leave no garbage in the garbage thing over the weekend. They usually take the garbage out over the weekend, and the floors be smelling like anything. Then sometimes people leave the garbage out there with roaches coming in there and stuff like that. You know, and that should not be right. You know, they should do that every, have a maintenance man come out here like on the weekend, give the garbage stay out, so we can have more room to put more garbage into it. You know, right, to be packed out. Right, you can't put no garbage in there. To be all packed out. You know? Yeah, you know?
That's not really the tax law.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no more room to put the garbage in. You know? And I'm not ready to go back.
Before let's try to keep just one person talking at a time. These are all good things, and I'm writing this down. Garbage collection over weekend.
Yeah, they could do
Yep.
it on the weekend, it's like this,
Yep.
And then you come around, fix the doors of the apartment and stuff like that, fix the doors and stuff, and come and check on the apartment sometime. In my property, I need a new window. Because every time I lift the window up, I put this in the window because I got a bad hand. And the white thing come off my window. And I don't have no screen on my other side of my window. They got the other kind of screen that, put into the window to go in. That should not be like that. It should be like a regular screen on the window. So the bugs will come in my apartment. Like during the summertime, got fires and all that junk coming into my apartment, all of that, I'm a clean person.
Right.
I like my place nice and clean, But like I said, I'm from Albany, and I love Albany so much. I'm trying to go back home to Albany. I want everybody to know that up in Albany, how this feeling down here is run. They don't want to come down here and live down here, You know, I want this bill to run the right way for it to run it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think also to what Iffy had said too about having more staff and like
Yeah.
things like this will be able to work much smoother. And this
Yeah.
is something that we can do to go and check and make sure.
Yeah.
And Nick also is gonna check about garbage collection over the weekend.
Yep.
We're gonna be looking into all of this stuff.
Over the weekend.
I'm just, thank you all so much for
Yeah,
coming
thank
and saying
you.
these things, and it's really important for us to know them, and we just really thank you.
It's a great part of having these meetings back in person is
Yeah.
that we get to hear everybody's concerns.
But
You know, get around doing nothing all day. You know, that, to be honest,
Yeah.
somebody wants to come.
Yeah.
I have to do when I have enough work that has to do doing the job.
Yeah,
okay.
And half the time is a lot of them aren't doing their job.
right. You know, clean the place up. You know, we can
Maybe
take out the set,
2-3 hours
clean that
outside.
place up there, you know? Mop it and stuff like that.
Yeah, this
You know?
these are real complaints.
Yep.
that we
Yeah.
need to address. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Well, thank you so much. Does anyone else, anything else? Oh, Ramona.
So they can take a chair and go outside if they want for executive session, because we still have to, the meeting has to still be open when we get out of executive
Yeah,
session.
the motion to adjourn. Yeah. So, we have maybe some more pizza left and stuff, so please, if you wanna grab a chair, and you have another question?
He's a good looking guy.
Nice to meet you too. But we are,
What we have to say, thank you so much.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We would never know why we did.
Yeah.
Thank you
I
so
ain't had
much.
no other choice, get out.
Yes.
No, you did not.
but
So
what we could do is after we go into executive session, if folks do want to wait outside, they can come back in, and we can announce any decisions that were made over the course of the
Yeah.
executive session, and then we'll adjourn. But this was the
And
bulk
you
of the
can-
meeting right
you
here.
can take a chair with you to sit if you want to come back in after, or you can just go. You don't have to come back.
You don't
in.
have to
That's
come
up
back.
But
yeah.
if you want to wait, you can take a chair with you out in the hallway and you can wait. Okay. Yes.
You have to stay.
I'll walk you guys out.
Okay.
Nick,
Yes, Linda.
Ron Kopnicki has his hand up.
Oh,
Wait, what happened?
Ron Kevnicki, sorry, I didn't see that on the Zoom. Well,
No, that's
let's hear
okay.
while everybody's
Can you
filling
hear
in.
me all right?
I can, yes.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make a short, first of all, I wanted to thank you for enabling remote access to the meeting as well as in-person access.
Absolutely.
And I realize that for meetings that are being held in City Hall, the city purchased a device known as the OWL, which can be used to enable both virtual access and in-person access. But I imagine you're not using that, right?
No.
For this
No.
meeting? Okay, well, I want to thank you because you are kind of pointing the way to groups that are not using the OWL or not meeting at City Hall to also have remote access along with in-person access. And I think this is the way that all governmental or quasi-governmental bodies should go to enable maximum public access. Go the extra mile. And I appreciate what you're doing. I know we're doing the same thing last summer, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, just a thank you. Keep up the good work and maybe let some of the other groups know that don't meet at City Hall that they can do this the way you've been doing it.
We have the mayor here, so we'll pass along the word. But I
Okay,
think that's our goal, is to just improve the audio visual, allow the people on Zoom to hear the questions that the public are asking, not just the board, but just to keep it both in person and virtual.
Right. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, Shaheem, if you could go ahead and put us into executive session, that would be great. Oh, and
Oops.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you all for waiting. So we have returned out of executive session. And within executive session, it's important to tell you all that we have had to suspend a resident commissioner until the conclusion of an investigation that occurred due to a tenant complaint. So that's where we're at. And if there's no other business, if any members of the public have anything to ask or any board members additionally, let us know.
And there were 2 executive session items. On the other item, there was no action taken.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So if there are no other questions, comments, or concerns right now for this meeting, I'm going to take a motion. Oh, wait, sorry, what?
Excuse me, what was the other reason for executive session besides personnel?
What's the proper terminology for the other executive session, Brian?
I would say it was a discussion of our RAD contract with HUD.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we do have one more item on the agenda that Mr. Lawler is going to give us a little information about the election issue that we've been asking about. He's been doing a lot of research into our bylaws and has some options for us moving forward. Take it away, Brian.
All right, thanks, Nick. So last meeting, it was discussed that there was a complaint about the last election of the tenant commissioners. There was a complaint filed by a candidate who felt that they were not given access to the ballot in a timely way, and it impacted the results of the election. So I was asked as counsel to take a look at what our options were and whether the procedures were followed. And so I did, as Nick said, I did some research on what's required under state law, what's required under federal law, and how the process went. So to go over what we have to comply with, we're really complying with New York state law, which requires all housing authorities in the state to have 2 tenant commissioners serving two-year terms. They also require the housing authority to have policies and procedures for tenant commissioner elections in their bylaws. Our current bylaws talk about 2 commissioners. They talk about 2-year staggered terms, meaning one would serve years for one and 2, and the other one would come in. So you'd have an election every year. They wouldn't have the same 2-year terms, they would overlap. It calls for annual elections. However, there are no procedures in your current bylaws for tenant elections. They're required by state law, but there are no procedures. It just has a very matter of fact statement. We're going to have 2 tenant commissioners. We're going to have 2-year staggered terms, and we'll hold those elections annually. So I asked Nick and Ravonda, what procedures did you follow for the last election? And when the information that I got back from staff was, well, we did what we always did and follow the procedure. It's like, so was my next question was, anything written down, or is there any written procedures? And the answer was, we don't think so, but I was forwarded all of your former bylaws, old bylaws that have been superseded. And I found in one set of bylaws, which I think go back to the time when the state first enacted the law requiring policies and procedures and tenant commissioners, that there are very specific procedures in those bylaws. It talks about 2-year terms. It doesn't talk about staggered terms, but it lays out a very specific process for holding an election, including the housing authority making available a list of eligible voters for tenant commissioners, meaning people who are named tenants in the authority, It requires candidates who want to be on the ballot to have signed petitions of either 25 eligible voters or 10% of the total number of eligible voters. Those petitions have to be submitted to the Housing Authority at least 30 days prior to the election, and that those candidates have to be posted in the office where the election is going to be held at least 10 days prior to the election, so everybody knows who's in and who's out. They also allow for the ballot to include write-ins. So I think we need to amend our bylaws to either reinstate the old procedures that everybody follows, or to take a look at new ones if there's procedures that we don't think are relevant anymore. But we do need to figure out how to bring the terms back to staggered terms, because it appears that we had an election that really didn't follow the state law. And the options that I'd see for going forward to fix this is, one, to have another election in December, like let the two tenant commissioners stay, have another election and have for the two commissioners, and have one, the highest vote getter, take a 2-year term, and the person who finishes second take a 1-year term, and then we go back on track. We could do that same. We could hold another election within 60 days to correct what we have an election in June, say, that does presents the same option, give everybody the opportunity to file a petition, let know who's eligible to vote, and have the highest vote getter get a 2-year term, and the second place person get a 1-year term, then have an election next year at the same time. Those are basically our options. But our option is, number one, we do have to do probably the next board meeting is amend our bylaws to include some procedures so that we don't run into this issue again. I think it's pretty straightforward what to do with the bylaws, but I do think you do have options about elections and when to hold them and how to get back on track. But I do think you have a valid complaint by the person who claimed that they didn't have fair access to the ballot. So I think you may want to consider having the election sooner rather than waiting until December. So it's kind of the overview, and maybe we could talk about it, have some questions, and see what you think the best, most practical way to go forward is.
I feel like, as far as it goes, like, I'm curious what Anthony would think, because he's like the only person that's really been through the process, at least at this table right now. And I'm curious if, Anthony, any of those options stuck out to you, like one over the other, or what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I don't understand exactly what the issue is. I just know that that write-in thing, that needs to be taken off, because it makes no sense for me to go out and get 25 signatures and then somebody just can come and write their name in and have the same ability to do things as I do. So I don't like that part. The other part, you'll do what you're going to do. Feel we need to go through the process again, then, we'll go through it again.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Anthony.
Will we need like a special meeting on this? Or?
I think if the board decides now what option they would like, it wouldn't be a resolution tonight. We could or we could even do it probably through email, because it's not a formal vote. But if you let Brian know what you want to do, he could put together a resolution and an amendment to the bylaws that would take that route. Is that right, Brian?
Correct. That's right. That's the best course. I think what you should give me direction on as to how you think elections should be held. Did the process that I described, that is the traditional process. I mean, Anthony said, strike the write-in. I don't believe there's anything in the law that requires a write-in candidate. So we could strike that if that's what the board wanted. And also, and I can circulate to everybody the old procedures that are in the bylaws so that they have them and have a good look at them. And then maybe when I come back with the new procedures, we can make a decision as to what we want to do about an election and whether we want to do it sooner or later, or how you want to handle it. I think it's important in a number of ways. I mean, one, because we have a formal complaint. Two, with all of the issues that we have with HUD and with HCR of looking for help with them to address some of our physical needs there. And one of the questions will be, are you in good standing under all your policies, procedures, and laws? And I think this one might stand out if a person feels that they weren't given fair access to the election. And we don't have a procedure to say, well, we followed the procedure and she just wasn't eligible. We don't have that defense right now.
So let me understand something. So there was a procedure that I followed. So how can you say there's not a procedure?
Well, that's a good question, because I haven't been able to find anywhere where that procedure is written down or have anybody who can explain what the procedure is. I mean, if we have that, if that does exist somewhere, I would change my, interpretation of it. But the bylaws doesn't have a procedure. And when we asked staff who ran the election, what procedure did you follow? They were like, we did what we always did.
So I think that's the thing, Anthony, is that we may have been following closely to something, but we weren't. It was never written down, and it was never clarified. So we don't have a piece of paper that said these are the instructions for doing this. It was kind of told to you verbally, and that's just what's that? Right. But it was never codified or made official that this is how it happened. And that's what provides the room for somebody to say, hey, it wasn't clear what I was supposed to do to get on this ballot. And that's exactly the issue. But it doesn't, I want to make clear that it doesn't, I don't think anybody is accusing you or any of the other tenant commissioners of doing anything wrong or anything like that. It's not saying that like this was rigged or anything was bad. It's just saying it was not made clear what the instructions were and how to do this to all of our tenants who may have wanted to participate.
When I found out a couple of hours later that the ballot was going on, now 2 people have to be on the ballot. I know in the last 3 hours, majority of votes were mine. But in the beginning, I had no clue what was even that it was that day.
Right.
Nobody said nothing to me that it was that day. Then I found out it's that day. And I'm like going to people like, because I went to them a couple of weeks before, talked to them about me and just let them know a little bit of, background and things like that. And when you have to put 2 people on the ballot, there's only 3 people that's voting, me and 2 other people. Of course, they're gonna have all the votes already because there's only 3 people on a ballot. And what we heard in the front office was you have no choice but to put 2 people on that ballot. So no matter what, there was no chance of me winning if 3 hours already passed and then 2 people were on every ballot.
So the big thing is that we need to have a firm policy and follow it, and that's what we can do.
Yeah.
So thank you, Brian, for doing all the work on this and getting all that information. And we really just need to be able to make a decision right now, right? On the first steps to move forward.
Yeah, I like the decision of you creating a new policy for this, Brian, instead of digging up an old one.
Okay.
That might be just outdated. I like that decision. I also like the vote in December, the 2-year and the 1 year, but that's just me.
So listen, I got something to say there. I'm fine with all that, and you come up with this new thing for the how to do everything. So why am I looking at this book here that has bylaws in it, and you're saying we don't have it?
Oh, yeah, bylaws, but what was given to me is the current bylaws doesn't have an election process in it.
Which year was that adopted?
The one that was adopted with the policy and procedure was back in 74 or 5. The ones that the current bylaws are 2018, according to what I have.
Which we actually amended it for COVID for like the
We
petition.
did that one resolution
Yeah,
that put the numbers down for the petition. It was, from my memory, only from that election cycle, I think. Or maybe only during the pandemic.
right.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever went to go like.
And Anthony, this is bringing up the other issue, is that there's a lot, and again, this is not anyone's fault, on this board or our current staff. But our bylaws in general, our policies and procedures have not been laid out clearly on a whole host of fronts. It's not just this. And so that's something that Brian's entire firm is working on, is an overhaul of everything, because this is not just the election. That we've had trouble finding files, we've had trouble finding policies and procedures, some of them because they've just gotten confused over the years, some of them never had them. And so it's not just the election. This is a problem across the board with our policies and procedures.
Which I understand. All I'm pointing out is I got this big, thick book here of bylaws and stuff, and you were saying we don't have it.
We have bylaws.
When was that one adopted?
I don't know. This was all given to me from the office. Trish gave this to me. It's a big binder here with all the bylaws and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, we have bylaws. I'm just not sure whether they're complete or not.
You just, Brian is just saying that there isn't something in the bylaws that talks about the elections specifically and how to do it.
And as I said, I understand that. I'm just trying to understand what is this thing I have here. But okay.
In the bylaws about how to do an election?
God, you're stupid.
That was
Excuse me?
Stupid? Who's stupid?
That was very rude.
Someone,
Who's stupid? What's that all about?
I don't know.
That was not cool.
No, not at all.
No.
Wow. Okay.
We can, that's
That's
never,
how we roll? Okay.
that's never.
No,
okay.
That was
that was a
Anthony,
member-
that was not from the board,
Yeah,
just so you know.
Okay.
yeah, that's not okay. It's never okay.
We'll have to look into that separately. But Anthony, what I would say, just for clarification, because I think part of what's confusing is some of what you may have in that binder in front of you, some of that may be from the 2018 adopted. Some of it may have been from previous sets of bylaws, which then when the new ones were adopted, the old ones were essentially negated or vacated. And so that's just the need for what's the clarification, because we went to the office, we said, what are the policies and procedures? We were sent a long list of different things. Some of them, like Brian has said, are from 1974, and those aren't valid anymore. But they may have been getting handed out and given to people as these are our bylaws. So it's exactly what we're saying, is we need to make sure that that binder that you have is the same binder that's in the office, is the same binder that all of our board members have, the same thing that our lawyers have, because that's not the case right now.
And it's like, it's a genuinely confusing thing, you know? It's like not, yeah.
And I don't think that it's that Anthony didn't understand what the question was. I think that he was asking for further clarification like the rest of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I think all of your questions, Anthony, are totally valid, and this confusion is the same confusion that I've experienced coming in and trying to understand what our current operating policy is, and that's not clear on a variety of fronts.
Yeah. And we're gonna make it clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about this now. That's what we can do.
And we'll also go back in the video, and if somebody did say something inappropriate about anyone, we will go back and try to establish who that was. And even though I know that it didn't come from us on the board, I apologize.
Yeah.
To you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, Anthony.
Yes, because, never mind.
That was not right.
That was not
right.
No. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're all just upset now.
Yeah.
So, I think with that, do we have any further questions or comments, and do we feel okay, at least on this item, to move forward?
Well, do we have a consensus on how we,
Oh, yeah.
which of those options we want to move forward with?
I'm not really clear on the two options. One is
New policy.
New policy and have a vote in December.
I think new policy needs to happen regardless. It's a matter of whether we say at the next meeting, we're going to schedule 60 days out or 90 days out with whatever notice we need to, a new election immediately, which will still be 2 or 3 months from now. Or do we say we get back on a schedule of December, and December is when this next election where we elect 2 new people, stagger, and carry out the new procedure.
Well, so given that we may need
Not for the time being, it's
I
just a
think-
suspension.
It makes a lot of sense that due to the fact that we have a formal complaint, that we take this seriously and that we make sure that we do something faster. This is my opinion personally. I think like we have a complaint and that's what we have to go by. And I think that the sooner the better personally. That's how I feel.
I agree. I agree. So new policy, new election in June.
Yeah. Just so we know we
Did
get
you
it
hear
done.
that, Brian?
You do? I hear it?
be up, right? So like.
Yeah, I guess I do not
Like
understand.
Anthony would be staggered not to be in this election.
Right, yeah, right,
Right?
I don't know.
I think it's worth like following up as we're writing the bylaws and like coming back next meeting with more information about what it actually means and taking the time to consider the options with the tenant commissioner that we have
Yeah.
right now and what the election process looked like for him and his expertise on it
Yeah.
before we weigh which option we pick.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I think it makes sense, given everything, to discuss more at the next meeting.
Okay.
Sure. So I'll have ready for the next meeting a new policy and procedure that we can adopt.
Right? Yeah.
We could also talk about.
And then you can make the decision about when you want to do the next election.
Oh,
Yeah. So we can go over all of that
yeah.
and have that ready for next meeting. So we're ready to just get moving.
What did Claire want a special meeting on again? I forgot.
On the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
On the Wi-Fi, which I think is important. Yeah.
So then we want to discuss.
Do we want to try to schedule when that could happen? Let's do a doodle
Yeah.
poll.
Can we just? Yeah. And so without any more business,
Anything else? Anything else from the people on Zoom or in the room currently?
Hey.
Linda?
Linda. Yes, that was me who said the stupid comment, but it wasn't aimed at the conversation. It was just background. And I apologize specifically to Anthony. I did not mean to offend you, and of course, any of the other board members.
Well, thank you for that clarification, Linda.
yeah, thank you, Linda, for.
There's just things going on in my background here.
Thank you for that.
Fully understood.
Oh, sorry.
That is okay. Do we have any more questions or comments? Well, thank you all for being
Motion to
here.
adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
I, Rebecca Flora, will make that motion.
I will second that. Thank you all. Thank you.
All in
Brian.
favor?
Thanks again, Brian, for your time.
Aye. All were in
Good night,
favor.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.